All right, and welcome everyone to the Ginette Biro podcast. I'm Ginette Biro, and today I have a fantastic guest with me today. She is a earth healing expert, and as I was saying to her when we connected, that this couldn't have come at a better time because so much of what is coming through these days is this draw to connect with Mother Earth, to connect in, to ground and harmonize with nature, with Gaia as a source of energy and beauty and a soul. And so I'm so excited. Amy Dempster is here today, and she has this amazing understanding of the healing powers of the earth. And she really is this resource for others who are wanting to learn how to deepen their own connection with it. She is also the leader of the Earth Tenders Academy, which is an immersive online journey to help others reestablish their connection to their ancient ancestors, learn to communicate with the seen and unseen forces in their environment, and respectfully offer their healing energy to places in need. This is fantastic, and I'm so excited. Amy, welcome.
Thank you, Ginette, so much for having me today. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, this is great. This is so fantastic. So, 2021 really seems to be this year about healing and healing the earth. This bringing up of so many things and exposing so many things to heal them. And one of those is the earth, but not just in 3D. And this is why I'm excited to talk to you, because we get to talk about the wooey aspects of the earth and the energetics and all of this. So before we dive into that, there's a thing here about how hawks led to your spiritual awakening. So kind of bring us back to what got you here.
Yeah, well, so many things. But, and initially I was on a bit of a spiritual journey. I had kind of opened up to meditation and, tapping into my intuition and some of those kinds of things. But then in 2008, I started having these series of unusual encounters with hawks. And really, they just kept coming very close to me in ways that they hadn't ever done before. So either flying right in front of me on a walking trail and, perching on a branch right next to me, or, coming right up and landing on the fence next to my window, or all kinds of different interactions where I just really started asking questions, which is, I think, how most of us end up on a spiritual journey, is starting to say, there's something bigger than myself happening here, and I don't understand it, but I'd like to. And so really it was in that questioning and asking, what is this? Is this a family member that has passed on who is coming with a message to me? Is there, what is it? And what's interesting is that in the asking of the question and in the trying to figure out the answer, I don't think I ever found the answer and it really was the intent to lead me on this journey. And so that's really what started the whole thing and kind of prompted me to go down the path a little bit further. And then a few years passed, and really I started getting this strong message that it was time to move. I was living in Northern California at the time, and very much had followed the traditional path after college and getting a job and working in a city and doing all of those things. And it
Doing
just
all the shoulds,
was not feeling,
right?
yeah. And it was feeling more and more out of alignment by the day. And I started receiving a message to be closer to pine trees and water. And so
beautiful.
I didn't know exactly what that meant or where that meant, but I, just really was open to it and open to seeing where I was led. And that ultimately brought us to Northwest Montana, a place we had never been before, didn't know anybody. And we really kind of threw caution to the wind, sold our house, quit our jobs, and moved to Montana and really started over. And it was after that move that I really started noticing I was receiving messages from trees in particular. And I didn't know what that was even initially. It was, there's messages coming into my head that I didn't put there and thoughts coming in that aren't particularly mine. And so that led me even deeper onto this journey and connecting with nature in that way.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, Montana is such, there's so much sacred land, right? Like
There
Montana
really
is
is.
such a place of sacred land energy, right? Like there's certain spots on the planet that have an abundance of sacred land, and Montana really seems to be one of those. So it's interesting that you were really drawn there.
Yeah, yeah, it's really a
Right?
special place, and there are new things to explore every day. I love it.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So you kind of talk about portals, and I've talked a lot about portals, and I love talking about portals. And it's interesting that I'm curious with you with portals, how you explain them, and how you connect with them. So, what can you tell us about portals? What's your experience? What do you know?
Oh my goodness, we could talk for hours just
Yeah.
about portals, but
Right.
yeah, my so the way I like to explain them is because oftentimes portals and vortexes are kind of lumped together or talked about in the same conversation. And so the way I explain it is, if a vortex is the interstate, then the portal is the exit. So there can be energy kind of moving through dimensions in a vortex, but the portal is really where energies can enter and exit from one side of the veil to the other, one dimension to the other. And so but there are all kinds of different types of portals. And so certainly, there are the ones that are in nature that I've worked with quite a bit. There are 7 of them here on the land where I live. And so that was partially how I got my hands-on education with
Mm-hmm.
portals, is having to figure out how they work and what to do, and how to make them safe, energy wise. But there's also kind of the portals that people are most familiar with, and the emails I get most often from people are there's a portal. They always seem to be like in closets, right? Like
Yeah.
closets or
Yeah.
bedrooms or somewhere, maybe
True.
a basement. But
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
somebody's closet always has a portal in it.
Yeah.
And really what I've learned and come to understand over time is that portals just vibrate with a certain frequency, and so the energies that can open the door and come through have to match that frequency. So the higher the frequency of the portal, the higher vibration of an energy that's going to come and go through it. And
Mm-hmm.
so some of them can be closed, some cannot, some can be relocated, some cannot. And so really each one is very unique, and really takes kind of working through with the energies and understanding, okay, what's happening here? What is the purpose of this? And how should we handle it?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I'm curious, have you ever stepped into a portal? And the reason why I say this is, like, we can step into vortexes and feel the whirling energy. But I remember one time I was talking with Spirit, and they'd opened a portal and they were talking to me kind of through it from that. And I asked them, I'm like, can I go in where you are? I'm like, if I go in where you are and disappear, it would validate for these people that it's really there, because only my eyes can see this right now. And they said, if you stepped into this portal, you would age 10 years in a matter of minutes, because the
Oh,
time is
wow.
different. You can't, like, you're not allowed in. And I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, no, don't really want to age 10 years.
Right.
No, thank you. Have you ever, so I guess what I'm asking is, have you ever had experience in, like, you see in the movies and they put their hand in a portal and it like disappears, or like, have you fused with the energies or stepped in or touched or anything like that with portals?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a two-part answer. The one is that you can physically kind of step into the energy and feel the energy
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes in these portals. And so and depending on the frequency and the vibration or whatnot, like, it might take some time for your body to calibrate to that, or to
Mm-hmm.
to feel okay. You might feel a little woozy
Mm-hmm.
and dizzy and nauseous if you do that. And so you can step into it in that way. My understanding, at least at this point, and while I haven't had that particular answer of time is different and so you would age, which makes perfect sense. We can travel with our consciousness in portals, and we can step into them in that way. And so
Mm-hmm.
in that way, I very much interacted with them, connected with them, I have come to realize that it is oftentimes how kind of those other multidimensional versions of ourselves are coming to connect with us.
Yes. Yes.
And so, initially you might be like, oh, I'm working with this guide, this, I have this group in this one portal in particular that call themselves the Ninth Collective. And after a little while, I realized, oh, this is just me. I'm doing this work somewhere else. And so I think that you're right, because of TV and movies and these types of things, we are kind of stuck to this idea that we need our physical body to, bilocate or disappear or go somewhere else in order to time travel, but we don't. It really is with our consciousness. And so, through meditation or a shamanic journey state, you really can, shift your consciousness to step into a portal to either connect with energies kind of in this plane, but within the portal, or to travel somewhere else and have those experiences.
Right. Beautiful. And I love that you touched on like parallel lives or multiple versions of selves, because that's coming up a ton lately, right? That's another podcast. That's a whole other topic. I'm going to try and stay focused because I'm excited here. We can go so many different ways. But okay, so how would you say that you would, for people that are walking in nature or have a lot of land or even in their own yards and stuff, how would you say somebody would recognize a portal?
So it really, some of it is, as you might expect, it feels a little wavy, loopy. If you stand still and you close your eyes, you'll feel your body really kind of, rotating around in one direction or another. You'll be able to feel like, oh, does this, portal energy go up? Does it go down? Which, is it moving to the left or the right? You can really kind of feel into that. Oftentimes, if it's out in nature, you will see the trees in the area either. It's really interesting. So here on the land, the spots where the portals are, obviously I'm in the pine trees, which are kind of just like a mass. They're everywhere, right? But there's perfect circular areas where there's no trees growing in the middle, and then the trees around them are kind of twisted or leaning one direction, or oftentimes the trees will fall down, and just get unrooted from the energy and tip over. And so you can kind of notice those types of things. And I always suggest to people, if they're interested in this, and if they have one of those tourist attractions nearby, a mystery spot, a vortex or whatever, it's a real thing. They have made them to be kind of fun, again, like touristy kind of things. We have one near us here, but it's a really, really good way to get a feel for the energy and how it interacts with you.
Beautiful. That's a great idea. And I really liked how in one of your videos, you said, learn to read the land like a shaman. Right? I love that. It was like, yeah, right. Like take a moment to step back and pause. And like you're saying, notice with it, where is there kind of a circular energy where things aren't really growing the same? And what does that feel like to you? And even I would imagine, like, have you noticed animals being different? Like when you're near a portal, is it noisier with animals or is it quieter?
I find actually it's a little quieter. I don't know, they don't avoid them altogether. When we have snow on the ground, obviously it's easier to see like, oh, a fox came through here, or, oh, there's been a lot of deer activity. But it probably depends on the portal too, and how strong it is and how much energy is moving to whether or not they're going to be drawn to it or, pushed away from it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because I would imagine some, those times where you walk through somewhere and you feel that whirly and the wobbly and you're like something here, but it's like dead quiet, but it's eerie dead quiet versus serene dead quiet, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can think of one place in particular. It's like the convenience store of a gas station, not far from here, but it's in a very historic area. And I walked in the door, and the first time I went there, and like almost tipped over, and like bonked into the shelves, because and that's why they build those like house of mysteries over a vortex, because when you're in restricted space with walls and that you expect it to be a certain way, then you can feel the energy so much stronger than when you're just out in nature and you're very much grounded into that space and can kind of see off into the horizon.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Good point. That's really cool. I really love it. Okay. So tell me a little bit too about working with the Earth's Living Library. What is that about?
Yeah.
So curious.
Yes.
Like, is that like Akashic Records of Gaia kind of thing?
It
Or
kind of is. Kind of. Yeah. And so this idea actually comes from Barbara Marciniak's book Earth, that is channeled from the Pleiadians. And
I think I've heard of that one.
have you? Yeah, it's so this
Oh,
book, if you
yeah.
don't have this book, it's really fun because I've probably read it, I don't even know, 20 times by now.
Yeah.
Every time I open it, there's something that I haven't seen. And I'm like, this book is a portal. It changes, depending on what information like I'm ready for right now. And so it makes me laugh every time, and I'll go months without looking at it, or I'll have time. Last year, my guide said, just hang on to that book. That's the Bible for 2020. And so I did definitely refer to it a lot last year. But yeah, so the Earth's Living Library is really this idea that at some point in the, I guess we could say the distant past, whether or not, however time works, is there was all of these different kind of star families, star beings, collectives from all over the universe that got together, and they kind of called it like a potluck, right? So everybody put their wisdom and their knowledge into these collective libraries, 12 of them across the universe, and then they were spread out into all different places. So Earth has one of these libraries, but it's not quite as, it's not a place, right? The information is held, the wisdom is held within the earth itself and within all of us. So, every tree, every plant, every grain of sand, everything holds bits of this wisdom. Yeah. However, for many, 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 many years, Earth has really been kind of closed off and disconnected from a lot of the rest of the universe. And this is, what we're experiencing now as things. Yeah. I really experienced it after the big conjunction in January last year, 2020. It felt like a new timeline got anchored in. And that when that happened, it was like all these doors opened up that hadn't been available before. And they go both ways. Like, not only are we able to go and explore things that we couldn't, there are energies all over the place that can suddenly come in here and explore as well. And so this information that is held here on Earth is useful to other beings and other places, and it hasn't been accessible for a long time. And so there are many energies that want to come in and connect with that information. And the only way to do that is through a human. And so they have to work with us, and they have to be able to match our frequency. We have to be able to match their frequency. Right. And in that way, we kind of become a key in the lock to the library. And so information begins unlocking to ourselves, and, is also making it accessible to other places that might need it. So, you can really connect with it yourself. And just when you're outside walking or in a space, you can really intend that, the living library be unlocked for you, and that information be able to come through you. So it's really, really amazing.
That resonates so big for me. Because I had the trees really speaking to me for a while, and they kept saying, like, come to the ancient wisdom of the forest, right? And connect with the trees and the ancient wisdoms of the forest. And they kept showing me, like, the wisdoms are rooted down into the earth, and they're like connected through this whole mycelium and root network and everything. And it's like this like supercomputer, if I could explain it that way, or neurons connecting full of knowledge, right? And if you connected with the trees, like if you touched a tree, or your consciousness, like you're saying, you open up to receive the messages, whether you touch them or envision them or hug them or whatever, that there's so much information to share and consciousness and all of this stuff. And so I'm thrilled to hear what you're talking about, because I'm like, yes, I get it, right? Someone else that's like speaking the same language. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic. What do you find is one of your best ways to for you to unlock that, like to open those keys? Is it through meditation? Is it through hugging trees, grounding?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. Some of it is just, I always suggest just get outside or have a place that you visit on a regular basis. Because if you
Mhm.
think about the lifetime of a tree, if you show up once a week in the same place, they're going to see you more than probably a whole lot of other humans and start to,
Mhm.
trust you and feel comfortable with you. But I actually find for me, more of this kind of unlocking happens when I'm interacting in certain ways. And so it can be in meditation. Sometimes channel messages come through in that way, but oftentimes I find a place to sit and I experiment with different things. What happens if I tone right now and I send that tone down into the earth?
Mhm.
What happens if I play a singing bowl? What happens if I create a crystal grid here? Kind of intuitively
Yeah.
working through those things. But it's like in that partnership or that engagement is where I suddenly have a spirit that will step forward and say, "Oh, I have all this information for you,"
Mhm.
or whatnot. So it's that kind of partnership where that gets created. I find for myself.
Yeah. Well, I love that because there's not one specific way, right? Like it's really
Right.
what you're saying too is there isn't, like, it's whatever way works for people. And so maybe for some people it would simply be singing bowls, right? They get the singing bowl
Right.
going, the frequency works for them and they're there. Other people it might just be bare feet sitting at the base of a tree and
Yep.
pondering, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Yeah.
love that too because it just it really aligns and it's open. It's not limited to, right? It's not saying you can only do this one way by standing on your left foot with your right foot at whatever, it's like
Right.
it's an
Right.
invitation um, from the earth saying, come and connect with me. How do you want to do that? We'll find a way and we'll meet there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I mean, because you're a channeler. And so it really is that same thing, that matching of frequency so that they can, bring the messages through you. But I think we're also very somewhat conditioned to think the only way to do that is to verbally channel or, step completely out of the way, for a channel, which absolutely works. But
mhm,
also you can channel by writing, which I do a lot. You can channel by painting. You can channel by, hands-on healing and
mhm,
sharing Reiki with people. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that energies can channel creative things through you and channel information and messages through you. And so for a lot of people that aren't either incredibly clairvoyant or clairaudient, it's okay to experiment with all different ways that
mhm.
messages can come through.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. So, considering your connection with the earth in the way that you understand it, what do you feel are kind of some insights of where um, the earth is going this year? Like, I guess if I refine the question, do you get a feeling of um, the perspective of the earth fighting back or the earth coming in with a ton of like earthquakes and shakeups, or the earth kind of like making her presence known? Like, what is the earth saying to you, I guess, is the most global way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I think it's so interesting. So, we, humanity is going through this ascension process. And, in doing so, we have to, do our own healing work and release, the lower, the denser energy that's held within us so that we can lighten up and lighten our, light bodies and shift to those higher frequencies. But the earth is doing the same thing. And there is a lot of energy here, held in the earth that needs to be cleared, released, healed, you name it. And so a lot of that is happening, especially when you experience like the earthquakes and, volcano eruptions, like these types of things that are very deep in the earth. There's two things happening. Some of it is like, like getting rid of the old stuff that's been weighing it down. And some of it is the releasing of ancient codes, wisdom, information, just exactly this,
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about, really. Releasing information that hasn't been available. And so sometimes it can feel scary, or like the earth is angry, or whatever else, but it's going through the ascension process right along with us. And so, when we're getting hit with the solar flare energy and the Schumann resonance energy and all of these
Yes.
things, so is the earth. We're all experiencing it together. And so what's been really interesting to me, as through what I've been learning over the past couple of years, especially, is that, we've kind of subscribed to this idea, I think, in our culture of like, well, if the earth doesn't like what we're doing to it, she can just get rid of us, right? And just wipe us off the face of the earth, which is completely true. Like that
Yeah.
could happen.
Yeah.
But really, we have removed ourselves so much from the earth that we forget that we're an integral part of the ecosystem, and that we are needed here too, but to work in partnership, and the earth is showing us that as a mirror back to us, where the pain is, where the trauma is, what needs to be healed, what needs to be released. And so, we are assisting in this process. A lot of these codes, a lot of this information comes from the sun through us, and we anchor it into the earth, and then the earth can, vibrate it back out to us. So there are many ways in which we are important to what is happening. But it's a struggle to recognize that or be in that place if we are, just locked in our houses and not going outside and not interacting or engaging in that way. And so that's what I find kind of exciting about where we're going and what we're doing, is that really we're going to have to take, finally, right, a hard look at how we've been living, how we've been connecting with the earth, and how we can do this differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Again, like my guides have been saying over and over, that 2021 is about so much exposure, like exposing the things that need to be cleaned, need to be healed. And so I love how you're saying that with the earth, say earthquakes or volcanoes, that's the earth kind of bending and stretching and cracking and popping where it needs to release these energies also, just as we are.
Absolutely.
Right? Like just as
Yeah.
we're doing that with our consciousness and our spiritual selves, and we're also we need to do that physically with our bodies. Our bodies need to move and bend and pop to release energy. So does the earth.
Right.
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 So it's a
Absolutely.
beautiful way that you described it. And it really resonates a lot. And I think more people are in a place where they can really receive this information without it sounding too woo or too airy fairy. I think there's such an invitation coming back to a greater collective of coming back into harmony with the earth, like almost embracing what the ancients understood. And when I talk about ancients, like I'm talking about like First Nations cultures, ancient Atlantean, Lemurian cultures, like ancient civilizations that understood cycles, understood the earth as its own being and their role in it, right? Like the whole collective cycle, right?
Absolutely. And I have noticed since the winter solstice, these Atlantean energies coming in so
Yes.
strong.
Oh my
And in a
gosh.
way that, at
Yes.
least for me, they haven't until now. And so I
Totally.
think it really is. It's like it's time now for that wisdom to come back. It's time for some of these crystals that we worked with then to come back. It's time, it's time for us to be able to step into that place. And I think we couldn't do it until now. And so as the density releases, and we have access to so much more information, and I think we are, I think certainly people are opening up and seeing that healing, especially our physical bodies, doesn't have to be so physical, and that and in some ways that's how people are waking up, is having the experience of, okay, like all the traditional things don't work for me, what else is there? And really having to go down that path. And then it's not so much of a stretch to say, well, if it works for me, it works for the earth, or that we are connected in that way. And so yeah, I'm excited. I'm with you. I feel like the messages I'm getting certainly over this past year, but it's going to continue, is like, we have to see the duality before we can release duality. And I think we didn't, a lot of us collectively just didn't see how stuck in duality that we were. And so I feel like almost that's why we're feeling it in such an extreme. That's why, the political, feeling feels so extreme, the two sides, or all of these different things, even coming down to, just all of the arguments, right, that we've been having collectively over the past year. Do you wear a mask? Do you not wear a mask? Do you get a vaccine? Do you not get a vaccine? Well, these are all things rooted in duality, and it's, we have to, in order to transcend it, we have to see it. And so I think we'll be having a lot more of those experiences this year.
I agree. I love this. Yeah, I'm so thrilled to hear what you're saying and what you're getting, because it's just aligning, and it's showing that so many people are waking up to truly being different and choosing to be different, choosing to think of something else, choosing to transcend what no longer works, like choice and awareness and willingness to observe. Like, it's exciting to see this coming up in so many different forms, whether you're an earth healing expert, or a medium, or channeler, or healer, or a shaman, or you name it, right? Or you just love nature and you feel nature speaking to you. Like, it's just this awakening of awareness, and bringing us back to the roots of our origins, which is exciting. You mentioned Atlantis, because, man, do I hear ya? Like, this Atlantis stuff is coming up like crazy. And I started this cosmic consciousness circle where I talk to people about crazy stuff, right? Where I'm like, if you guys sign up for this, we're going crazy.
Sounds like my kind of place.
Right? Yeah. It's like you're here, so it's okay. And when I channeled into spirit about what were we going to talk about, they said, let's go to the beginning. We're talking about Atlantis, Lemuria. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm thrilled beyond anything to hear you talking about this, because that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like it's coming through to everybody. And I think that's, it's not just one person that's getting the message. We're all hearing it, that it's time to, we all those gifts are held, in our bodies. And so the more we can open them up, the more we can bring them through. And we're in a timeline where it's safe, that, many of us have experienced unsafe situations for our gifts. And this is the time that we can bring them forward in a beautiful way.
That is such a good point, that you're saying it's safe. It's very true. It totally is. So listen, as we kind of unfortunately bring this to a close, because I could talk to you all day, literally, we'll have to do this again. But how can people connect with you? What kind of stuff are you offering right now that people can learn from you, connect with you? What are some of your offerings that you have at the moment?
Yeah, so my website is Following Hawks. That's where you can find me. And I have a free training that I offer that is how to communicate with the spirits of the land. So if this is interesting to you, you can go there and sign up for my email list and watch my training on that. And then the main thing that I offer is the Earth Tenders Academy. And that is a 9-module online course where I pretty much walk you through from, the basics of energy work, protection, clearing and keeping your house energetically comfortable, but really going deeper into getting to know where you live, rooting deeply there, getting to know the spirits of the land, specifically where you live. We go into all these multidimensional topics like portals and timelines and all of these types of things. And then spend some time really learning how to do healing work with the land. So when you connect with a place that needs healing work, how do you do that? And what are the parameters? And so within that, we all of that's self-guided, but then we meet twice a month to we do readings on people's properties and homes that are in the course, and also have a Q&A call every month. So
amazing.
That is my main offer, main place that I am.
I love it. And you also have a podcast, correct?
I do. It's called the Earth Keepers Podcast. And I talk about all of these kinds of topics on there.
Things. Okay. So basically all your information, any of that stuff, people can just find on your website, right? So if I'll tag
Yep.
below your website, everything they can find from there.
Yes, it's all
Yes.
there.
Okay. So cool. So exciting. So I honestly, you guys, if you're watching this and you want to connect deeper with Mother Earth and to know how and to be guided, connect with Amy, because I'm trying to hold back my excitement right now at how thrilled I am to hear all this awesome stuff. Plus your vibe is just beautiful. It's so beautiful. So thank you so much for joining me today. This just
Thank you for
lit
having
up
me.
my morning. It really did. So thank you.
Yes.
And I do look forward to doing this again to hear what you have to say as things shift and change. So we will have to chat again. And so until then, I hope you guys all have a good rest of your week, and Amy, you as well.
Thank you so much for having me.